On this episode, we're going to talk about Major Leaguer Don Heffner. He started his Major League career with the New York Yankees in 1934, but today we're going to focus more on his years with the St. Louis Browns from 1938 to 1943. We'll provide you with some little-known facts on Don, showcase some great photography, and awesome memorabilia from that era that once belonged to Don. So please, join us today as we knock this one out of the park on this episode of History and Relics. Donald Henry Heffner was born in Rosterville, Pennsylvania on February 8, 1911. Heffner entered professional baseball in 1929 with the then minor league team, the Baltimore Orioles. He watched and learned from many greats while coming up in the game, including getting batting tips from none other than Ty Cobb. His talents would soon catch the eye of the major leagues, where he joined forces with the New York Yankees in 1934 for a salary of $3,000 a year. The 23-year-old played alongside legends like Red Roth, Tony Lazzeri, Lou Gehrig, and Babe Ruth. The Yankees were dominant as always and walked away with World Series wins in both 1936 and 1937 against the Giants. Don didn't play in either series due to appendicitis in 36 and not making the roster in 37. However, he still enjoyed his gold ring and diamond-studded watch. He spent 4 seasons with the Yanks as a part-time player, primarily as a second baseman and shortstop. He finished his stint with the Bronx Bombers, having only played in 161 games with a total of 526 at-bats, with most of those in his rookie year with 241 and his last year in pinstripes with 201. He had just 62 runs, 135 hits, and 60 RBIs. Don was then traded to the St. Louis Browns, along with $10,000 for shortstop Bill Knickenbocker on February 15, 1938. Don always felt that the move was due to tensions building in the Yankees front office over unpaid or disputed medical bills from his appendicitis operation that occurred in 1936, but the Yankees' reasoning behind the move is unclear. Nonetheless, he was provided an opportunity to play more regularly with St. Louis. The St. Louis Browns were a Major League Baseball team that originated in Milwaukee, Wisconsin as the Milwaukee Brewers, a charter member of the American League. The Brewers moved to St. Louis, Missouri, and after the 1901 season, they would play for 52 years as the St. Louis Browns. As you might know, there were some great players and legends that came out of the Browns, including Bobby Wallace, George Sisler, Goose Goslin, Harlan Clift, Luke Sewell, and Satchel Paige. The Browns set a franchise record for attendance in 1922, attracting over 712,000 people. That figure would never be seen again for the rest of the franchise's tenure in St. Louis, and would remain the franchise record until 1954, the team's first year in Baltimore after being purchased in November 1953. Don's first year with the St. Louis Browns in 1938 found him playing in 141 games. He almost beat what he had combined with the Yankees in 4 seasons. From there, he had 473 at-bats for 116 hits and 69 RBIs. 1938 was also when Don smashed his first Major League home run. In fact, all 6 of Don's Major League home runs came during his stay with the Browns. And speaking of home runs, here's a bat that belonged to Don that dates to his St. Louis days. What a beauty of a pre-model Louisville Slugger, made from ash and measures in at 35 inches. Thanks goes out to John Tobby of PSA DNA Authentication Services for his expertise in authenticating this great bat for us. And that leads us to our next piece of featured memorabilia, Don's St. Louis Browns uniform. Don wore number 1 while with the Browns, and we have a complete uniform including the jersey, pants, and stirrups. With the help of our friends Dave Grob and Andy Raffa of SGC, we know this jersey dates to 1940 and the pants are tagged to 1939. Very common back in the day to mix and match and even reuse garments year over year. We're proud to have this excellent specimen in our collection, a rare piece of Browns history right here. Things were looking up for Don, as not only was he playing and contributing more, his pay starting with the Browns was more than double that of his rookie year with the Yankees, now being paid $7,000 a year. Heading into the early 1940s, his pay continued to move up, reaching $8,500 at one point. And just to put all of this into some perspective for you, $8,500 in 1941 is the equivalent to nearly $180,000 today. World War II brought hard and tough times for many, including the game of baseball. Many of the elite players put down their baseball bats to join in the war effort, such as Bob Feller, who enlisted in the Navy just 2 days after the attack on Pearl Harbor, becoming the first professional athlete to enlist. The front office of the St. Louis Browns' strategy during the war was to pursue players who couldn't serve in the military. Many of the Browns' players were classified as 4F, or not acceptable for military service. This actually put the Browns in a better position as wealthier teams were having to deal with their best players being drafted. As the war progressed, Don's play slowly subsided, as well as his pay. In 1942, he played in only 19 games, and his pay slipped back to $7,500 a year. In mid-June 1943, Don was sold to the Philadelphia Athletics, where he finished out the 1943 season. Don's last year as a player was 1944, when he played with the Detroit Tigers for $9,000 a year. Don played in 743 games in his playing career, had 610 at-bats, 275 runs, 248 RBIs, 6 home runs, and a batting average of .241. Not a particularly spectacular player, but he held his own against some of the best players to have ever played the game of baseball. Don went on to coach at a number of teams, including Kansas City, Detroit, the Mets, and the Angels, before fully leaving professional baseball in 1968. He even managed the Cincinnati Reds for 1 year in 1966 and managed a young rookie then named Pete Rose. As for the St. Louis Browns, in 1944, the Browns won their only American League pennant in St. Louis. On the final day of the season, before a sellout crowd of 35,518 people, their first sellout since 1924, they defeated the New York Yankees 5-2. Minutes earlier, the Tigers lost 4-1 to the Washington Senators, giving the Browns the pennant by a single game. Thus, they became the last of the 16 teams that made up the major leagues from 1903 to 1960 to play in a World Series. In the 1944 World Series, the Browns were the underdogs against the Cardinals. It would be the last World Series played entirely in one stadium, Sportsman Park, until the 2020 World Series played in Arlington, Texas. While the Browns lost in 6 games, they won 2 of the first 3 games, but the Cardinals took the overall win 4-2. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed our program. If you like our content, we ask that you give us a thumbs up, a like, share with your friends, subscribe to our channel, and ring that notification bell so you always know when our new content is published. And all of this costs nothing, but means a lot to us and keeps us growing. You may also leave us a tip if you choose. The address is provided here on your screen, and a link is provided in the description area below. So until next time, everyone, this one is history.